Okay, I have Alison here from Quiip, who is going to have a chat with me today about all things remote work. Alison, thank you for chatting to me. Do you want to give me a bit of a rundown on what it is you guys do, and we'll dive into why what you're doing is so awesome.
Excellent. Yes, so I'm the CEO of Quiip. We've been running for 10 years. We are a social media and online community management company. What that means in practice is we help manage brands, social media channels and online communities around the clock. So we run 24/7. So do lots of nights and weekends for clients, engaging with their customers, members online, and managing the risks of working with social media, and also building up engagement for them. So we have an entirely remote team of around 22, based largely around Australia, but we also have some team members overseas, which really help with those terrible shifts in the middle of the night.
Yeah, time zone is good. So, well, that is, you've just touched on specifically why one of the massive perks with having a distributed team. But can you tell me, did you start with an office initially and grow into the concept of a remote team, or have you been remote from the start?
We have been remote from the start. So I started the business when my second child was 3 weeks old. Which seemed like a good idea at the time. But I had been commuting to Sydney. I live in a regional area outside of Sydney, so I'm 90 kilometres north of Sydney. So it's quite a long commute. I've been commuting pregnant. I've been throwing up before I've got on the train mornings and, get to work, and throwing up in the car park, and all these wonderful joys of travelling pregnant. I had a toddler at home. Couldn't even get back to the coast in the traditional daycare hours. And it was just, I don't even know how I did it for as long as I did. And lots of people have long commutes in Sydney. So even, if you're not living regionally. So I decided, no, I'm going to launch this business. I'm going to do it from home. It made no sense for me to have an office if I was never going to be there.
Yeah.
I thought that would be kind of weird. I'll hire an office that other people can go to. So
Yeah.
I never entertained the notion. So I was very much driven by the values of having freedom and flexibility, being a parent, and that's something that I wanted to be able to offer everybody. We have been remote from day one.
Oh, good. Well, that's what we like to hear. Same goes, same goes. Look, a lot of the businesses quite often that we deal with have, if they haven't employed people remotely, or they haven't sort of had particularly flexible workplaces for their current staff, there's sort of some challenges, I suppose, that can be roadblocks for people going down this way of hiring people, or even just making it flexible for the staff that they've currently got. Have you I suppose you talk about how your company runs quite regularly, whether it's like at the pub or at school pickup or things like that? Like, what are sort of some of the questions or things that people sort of come up with when they're like, hang on, what, you don't have an office and your staff are everywhere? What are sort of some of the questions that people put to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I've had less opposition than I really thought I was going to. And in the beginning of the years, I didn't talk about it a lot, but it's become so much more prevalent and accepted. And, people are a lot more curious about it now. So I sort of speak about it a lot more. I mean, I think, one of the biggest things is, one of the things that I get a lot that frustrates me a lot is just when people say, oh, I couldn't do my role remotely. Like, my role can't be done remotely. And sometimes I feel like pointing out that might just be their own ego, because I'm not sure there are many roles that require you to be co-located. I mean, I think people can do surgery remotely with robots now. So it's like, if you can perform surgery on a person and not be there, there's probably a chance that your job can also be done remotely. But, that's not to downplay the value of being face to face, but I think that it really comes down to like culture and tools and, this concept of remote first, understanding that those employees aren't just distant, unimportant employees, like really, sure they're valued. I think if you have a head office, there's some extra challenges, because then you have these staff that are somewhere else. So I think for us, we've been lucky that we're decentralized and we have no head office. But yeah, I think there is a big misconception that, lots of roles can't be done online. But if you're in a traditional office, I mean, how many times do you email the person that sits at the desk next to you or down the hallway? You know, even if they're on another floor and you're like, oh, I've got to go and get the lift and go up there and go. It's just, you know, some people do that in an office, and it actually makes it really unproductive when people stop by your office and the desk and want to talk to you all day. So, you know, I think actually if you have the right tools in place, most roles can be done remotely.
Yeah. What about that concept of like accountability? Like we hear a lot about the trust thing. Like how can I trust that they'll get the job done? What sorts of things have you put in place so that you can know that the people you're paying wages, that the work's actually being done? Like how do you sort of measure productivity or have people being accountable for what's being done?
Sure. So yes, that is a question I get a lot, is how can you be sure that people are working? So how I usually answer is that the challenge isn't whether or not they're working, it's often, are they working too much? Are they getting off their computer at the end of the day, or are they checking their emails on Saturday night? So we actually focus a lot on respecting people's time, and we talk about being a calm company, which is from Jason Fried's latest book of It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. It's got some great concepts in there. So yeah, I don't think the issue is them not working enough, it's that they're working too much. But at the end of the day, it comes down to trust. And if you don't have trust in your company, you've got a really big problem that you need to solve. You know, that's just that command and control form of management, I think, is over. You know, there's a great Patty McCord video she's from Netflix or ex-Netflix, but you know, she says you have to remember that fully fledged adults walk through the door each day. You know, it's like they're adults with responsibilities, they pay bills, they run their own lives. If you can't trust those people, then, you know, maybe that's something you need to look at as a company.
That's a really interesting concept, actually. It's so funny that it's as if, like, by default, the chain of command makes you more mature or more able to get work done, or to be, which everyone
it's like, you're assuming that they're going to not do work as soon as they're given the opportunity. But people are driven by their own motivations to work, and those motivations are varied. But I think it is about moving towards a sort of results-oriented work environment. So ROW is the acronym for that. But, you know, just looking at, what results, what deliverables, you know, and if people get that done in 1 hour or 10, that's up to them. But I think, you know, people feel the 9 to 5 workday, you know, they're definitely on Facebook mucking around in an office environment, you know. And I think, you know, Jason Fried says this in his talk as well that I really like, which is, you know, if you're just managing productivity based on physical presence, you're actually just managing chairs, not people. Are people sitting in chairs? Is someone there?
Really interesting. You also are a pro at doing this, and I know that we've sort of talked offline about the concept of that space of sometimes taking the plunge can be a bit tricky, like of doing this, or even just making it flexible for your staff that you've already got on. Do you have one golden piece of advice that makes like that first dipping toe in water experience for a business owner or manager or hiring manager, sort of, I don't know, give them a bit of advice to think about it for the first time?
Well, I mean, I read about that term micro agility in that work report the other day, and it was a concept that you could start by with your traditional office, giving people 1 to 3 hours a day where they can leave the office if they need to. And maybe there's a school pickup and they take their child somewhere, or they have to duck up. They don't need to tell you that they're leaving 1 to 3 hours. They're just going to have that flexibility, and they make their work up elsewhere. So I think that if you were to do that for 1 hour, or the 1 to 3 hour window of just easing into just trusting that people can manage their time in the best ways that they need to. You know, maybe that is a school assembly in the morning, or, you know, I'm using parenting examples, but there's so many, you know, caring for parents, or, you know, even sport. I think that one of the great things is, like with my company, is, you know, people can play sports again. Like it's quite hard in a traditional office environment to get back to wherever you live in order to go and play soccer or something. But if you, you know, it starts at 5, you can do it. So I think the hobby aspect and being back involved in your local community, and whether that's volunteering or, you know, all those sorts of stuff. And it's just
or
so good for people.
like time to yourself. And I think that some things that we can also go almost too far is that, like, flexibility in some organisations is only for working mums. Well, what about your 25-year-old men that work in there that, you know what, I love reading, or I want to go for a run in the afternoon before it's dark, like that sort of thing, that it can be for everyone. It's not just for the marginalised people in your company.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's better for people and their families and, you know, their local communities. I think, you know, one thing people don't consider a lot about remote work is it puts money back into small communities. You know, I live here in Avoca and I go out and get a coffee and, you know, go to the hairdressers and do things locally, and it stimulates local economies. And that's a fantastic thing for regional Australia. So, you know, and then there's the environmental part of like not commuting and contributing, you know, carbon emissions. And, you know, there's so many reasons.
Well,
all embrace work immediately.
So where, if people wanted to follow along with what you're doing, I have to just shout out that you guys have got a gorgeous inside Quiip Instagram page that sort of is a bit more of an inside look at your company. But where can people find you?
So people can connect with me on LinkedIn, either through Quiip or just my own personal profile, Alison Michalk. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat remote work. It's something I'm really passionate about and really proud that we, you know, have as a company. And, you know, I just think it'd be really great if more companies can embrace it. And I think it is the future of work.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was great chatting to you.
No worries. Thank you very much.